Okay, so knowing who your audience is incredibly important when you're writing to persuade. The reason is because it allows you then to direct all of your energy to that particular individual. You know how they're thinking, you know how they're feeling, and that way you're going to have a much better chance of convincing them that your position on the topic is better than theirs. That's essentially what you're trying to do. And an excellent way to make sure that you're really thinking about the audience is to engage in this particular technique, which is called polemic writing. And as the definition says there, it very much ensures that you're thinking about what the other person is thinking before you try and present your own points on the topic. So let's have a look at some examples of this technique in use. So this is exactly what your exam is going to look like in the persuasive writing section. There are two tasks. Please make sure that you are aware of that. You definitely need to write two different persuasive texts. That's the first thing we have to make sure we've got 100% in our minds. It's also worth noting as well that quite often in the exam, the examiner will probably test two types of persuasive writing. They may want to test a much more formal piece of writing, which would be the example in number 1 here, and they also may want to test a slightly more informal example, which is what would be number 2. Now that may not be always the case, but there's a fair chance that that's the way the exam is going to be set up. That way the examiner can see that you're able to write in two different styles. So in this example here, if we looked at question at B1, what I'll notice is that this is actually asking me to write a report. Now, I know, and you should know as well, that a report is the only one of the 6 different text types that doesn't require you to persuade. Now, because it doesn't require any persuasion, it's more factual in its information, therefore we don't really need to think about what the other person might be thinking. So the polemic technique is not going to be appropriate if the question asks to write a report. On the other hand, question 2 here though wants to talk about this. A proposal has been made to hold a motorcycle race on the roads in your area. You have decided to write an article for your community magazine to share your views on this proposal. You could write in favour or against the proposal. All right. Now I think this is a perfect opportunity to, if I'm going to present my position on the motorcycle race, let's just say for example that I'm for it, I'm really excited that it might come to my town. The best thing to do for me now would be to think about, right, if I'm trying to persuade my community that this is going to be a good thing, let's think about the things that some people might actually have against the race coming to the town. And that's the polemic argument. So let's go through it, what those arguments would be. Right, so let's think about what the opposition might be actually against the race. Well, there's a fair chance that people are going to have some health and safety concerns. They might think that it's too noisy, and they might also be a bit upset that it's not going to be so easy to get to work. There's going to be disruptions. So those 3 things there are really valid arguments against the race. Now the whole point about polemic writing and the reason it's so effective is that instead of me just going off on my own position now and saying, oh, I think the race is going to be really exciting and it's going to bring in new jobs and those, they're good points. But if I'm trying to argue against someone who actually is really worried that they might get hurt by being at the track, then new jobs coming along is not going to change their opinion on that at all. A better thing for me to do would be to actually consider what their problems are with the race, address those issues, and that way I've got a better chance of persuading them that the race should go ahead. So let's put this into words and see how this actually would look on a page. So the first point is about health and safety, and as I say here, I know that some folks are concerned about their health and safety as the bikes thunder around the track. They are worried that people could easily be hurt or even killed as they are watching the race. Now, that's a legitimate reason to be afraid of the race coming to your town if you're thinking that you're going to get hurt as you're standing there on the side of the track. So, by mentioning that and addressing it, what I'm going to do now is give some reasons that will make the person who feels like this actually feel much more comfortable about the race going ahead. So let's do that. So I'm not only putting some good points across, but in the yellow now, I'm actually using persuasive language. I've used adjectives, I've used some statistics, and I've used emotive language, not a single injury, to really emphasise my points. And I think that's a really powerful way to get my point across now. So with the previous example as well, I'm going to put some yellow on here now to highlight some of the persuasive language that I've used. Ambulance staff, making people feel secure. Then I talk about the new state-of-the-art concrete, so they can be assured that the most technologically advanced safety equipment is being used, definitely making the people feel more comfortable about turning up to the event. Then I think I lay it on really thick at the end by using really emotive language, by me suggesting that I'm going to take my 3 young children there, knowing that they are going to be completely safe by being at the event. Now that really does hopefully persuade the person who has some problems with the safety at the event that actually they shouldn't have any problems. I'm taking my young children there. Clearly I wouldn't be doing that if I thought there was any danger at all of them being hurt. So there's a couple of cool things that have happened here. Not only have I written almost 150 words here in this first point, but more than that, what I've done is, I think successfully, I've taken persuasion to its highest level. Because not only have I used my own persuasive techniques with adjectives and statistics and a bit of emotive language, but more importantly than that, I've actually addressed the one probably biggest issue that my opposition would actually have. And if I'm able to address that issue and suggest that maybe that issue could be fixed or there's a solution to that issue, then surely I've got a much better chance of persuading my audience. So now what I want to do is think about the second arguments that my opposition might have. And I've got 2 choices, that it's going to be noisy or that it might be inconvenient for them to get to work. Now, I think out of those 2, the inconvenience is probably going to be the more serious concern. So that would be my next point. Right, so what I want to draw your attention to here is that I'm not trying to belittle the other argument. I don't want to make the person who has a legitimate problem that they're going to be late for work. I don't want to belittle that. I don't want to make them feel that it's not worth talking about. So I do actually go into a little bit of detail. I talk about the fact that for at least a week, before the race starts, several of the roads will be closed, making it much more difficult for people to get to work. So I'm being honest about what the issues are going to be. Now, I've got to come up with a decent response to that. And here's the skill. Am I just going to say, oh, don't worry about it because it's better for everybody else? No, because that person is still not going to be convinced by that because they are the one missing out. So somehow I need to come up with a solution that is going to make them feel okay about the fact that they are going to be inconvenienced for, 10, probably 12 days before and after the race is completed. So I think I have come up with a good idea here. I'm saying that the City Council is going to run shuttle buses for those affected and that they're going to come every 10 minutes. All right, so this is also a persuasive technique here, totally assuaging any issues that a commuter might have about running late for work. And then I'm sort of putting the icing on the cake here as well by suggesting that these workers have also been promised a free pass to the first day of race, just to say sorry for any inconvenience that's been happened. Now again, if I was one of those workers affected by the race and thinking that it's going to take me another 15 or 20 minutes to get to work now, I'm going to have to get up earlier and all that. Well, if I know that it's not going to be that much delay because I'm going to get a shuttle bus and I'm also going to get a free pass for one of the days, I might be thinking, okay, well, fair enough. Then when I hear all the other positives about the race, which I'll go on to in a minute now, start to really talk the race up, I think the whole purpose then of this text is achieved. and that is to persuade the reader that the race should go ahead. So the next question is, where would I put the polemic argument in my answer? And I guess that depends entirely on the question. Some questions would like an immediate argument to happen, and others maybe not. It would be more beneficial for your polemic argument to happen sort of halfway through your response, perhaps. Well, let's have a look at this particular question we've been working on and see where it would fit. Okay, so if we bring up the question again, a proposal has been made to hold a motorcycle race on the roads in your area. Write an article for your community magazine. Now I also want to draw your attention to the bottom here. It actually says write a lively article for the magazine. Now that means we've got to really engage the reader straight away. We've got to make it quite entertaining. We have to make sure that we're going to keep their attention. So I guess at this point then, what we have to work out is, would the objections to the motorcycle race, would they be the very first thing that is on everybody's mind instantly, or would we be better off introducing this, our position, with maybe some really persuasive, positive things about the race? Okay, either way, because it's an article, I know that I must have a good headline. That's the first thing that people are going to see in a persuasive text. It's a persuasive technique. So it has to be a good headline. So let's have a shot at this. So racing revs up Rochester. Okay, so it's got a bit of alliteration in there, and it's quite lively. Even the word revs and racing sort of gives it a bit of an exciting feel. Now because of that then, I don't think it would be appropriate for me now to go instantly into the negative side of the race. I think definitely I need at least one paragraph that really talks up the race. So that's what I would do. So here's a suggested layout of our response. So if the question was something a little different to what we just experienced, for example, your local council has decided to close down the skate park in your area, write a letter to your local MP with your concerns about this decision. So with this type of challenge, you can see that actually it would be a really good idea to go straight to the polemic argument. Get straight to the point of why this council thinks that it is necessary to close down the skate park. It's not a decision that they would have made lightly, because they know that people will complain. So getting straight into the polemic argument is without a doubt the best way to go with this type of question.